In today's Leeds news, delay in Somerville deal, change of system might help Gnonto, Rumour mill wrap up, and let's talk about Micah Hamilton. Morning folks, Jerry here at The View, Friday morning the 2nd of August. One day to go till a return to Elland Road for fans and the Leeds United squad. A new look Leeds United squad heading into that game. We will have the match day preview tonight with Andrew Stats Dalton at 7pm. Keep an eye out for that if you're interested in that. Also just wanted to take a moment to just stop and talk about Craig Shakespeare for a second, who passed away yesterday at 60 years of age. A very young age for a man who was the Leicester City manager involved in sport for a very, very long time. Rivalries in sport stop in these situations, and just to say heartfelt condolences to the family of Craig Shakespeare and his friends, and rest in peace, Craig. And moving on to news today, and there's very little floating around. It's gone incredibly quiet right now around Leeds United. That usually means something's in the offing, but we're going to just start off and cover off the Crescencio Somerville situation and what's actually been going on with there. We all expected by this stage to have heard a deal confirmed and announced for Crescencio Somerville to become a new West Ham United player, and expected the player to be heading off to America to join his new teammates. As was said by Sky Sports' Darmay Chef, who said a deal had all been agreed yesterday. Well, now there's been a little bit more detail. Somerville is still expected to complete his move to West Ham, and by the time you watch this, a deal may already be announced. But it's worth finding out what exactly has gone on with the situation so far and clarify some of the rumours that are floating around there this morning. According to Darmay Chef, he claims that the delay is simply down to the medical being broken up into multiple days. But last night we heard from Florian Plettenberg, who tweeted that there was no agreement in place yet between West Ham and Leeds United, and that on the players' side an agreement hadn't been reached yet either, but the medical had taken place and had been done to speed up the process in order to try and get the player off to America as quickly as possible. Another reason for the delay is also said to be down to the fact that a lot of medical staff have headed to America with the West Ham team for their pre-season tour, and that there's a skeleton crew around the moment, so things are taking a little bit longer than they would normally take. Darmay Chef tweeted that the deal had been completed and that the paperwork was being finalised, and expected an announcement yesterday before the player was expected to head off to America. But if it wasn't done by yesterday, Somerville would stay in London until the team returned after that tour. We then got an update from Darmay Chef after Florian Plettenberg's tweet that basically said that the delay in announcing Somerville was due to the fact that the medical had been broken up into 2 days. The first part of the medical yesterday and the second part of the medical today, and that an announcement was still likely. Darmay Chef didn't get into the detail around whether a fee had been agreed or finalised yet, or whether the player's personal terms had been met just yet either. But at this point, we're still waiting for the announcement. There's nothing yet, but it is expected. But I think everybody at this point yesterday thought this deal may be hitting the rocks a little bit. Maybe a Chelsea or a Liverpool will start to get involved now. Maybe that fee would start to go up a little bit. That doesn't appear to have happened just yet, but it is incredibly quiet. We know the 49ers operate. West Ham are kind of moving in silence with this as well, with a lot of the information coming out around the deal coming from the West Ham side. But we'll have to wait and see. And as I say, by the time you watch this, the announcement may already be done, on or off by this stage. But we'll keep an eye on it. But I wanted to kind of just go through the detail of what had popped up yesterday, because there was a lot of question marks around what's actually going on with this. So there's some information there for you there on that one. Moving on to a story in Leeds Live today from Baron Cross, and he's written a really interesting piece about how a Daniel Farke change of system that he has played around with during pre-season might actually be a key to keeping Willie Gnonto at the club and benefiting Gnonto long term. Daniel Farke tried a 3-4-3 system against Harrogate in pre-season with wing backs with Junior Firpo on one side and Sam Byram on the other side, bringing in Jayden Bogle into a preferred wing back position from him, and Junior Firpo being the best as a wing back on the left hand side gave him the opportunity to tuck the wingers that he had in a little bit to more kind of secondary number 10s, and that might be something that fits Willie Gnonto perfectly. Gnonto in general favours playing on the left hand side and has been playing on the right hand side currently in order to facilitate Crescencio Somerville playing on the left hand side, which is completely understandable given the amount of goals and assists that Creed got last season. But now with Somerville gone, Gnonto could get his opportunity to play on his favourite left hand side and be tucked slightly more inside if a change to a 3-4-3 system takes place. Cross states that if Farke does change to a 3-4-3, then Somerville's replacement would likely not be a winger, and more than likely could be an inside 10 or another attack-minded player, but not necessarily a wide player, and that could be something that facilitates Gnonto perfectly. He did start last season against Cardiff as the number 9 before he went on strike, and for me, in that game was one of the better games he played all season for Leeds United and looked very dangerous in the central positions. During last season, I'd said multiple times I'd love to see Gnonto playing as a number 10. I think he's got all the attributes to be a successful number 10 for Leeds, and this system might allow Gnonto to come in. I did say yesterday as well that I think there's an opportunity for Gnonto to really step up here, take the number 10 shirt and take Crescencio Somerville's position in the team and be the player that helps to fire Leeds back into the Premier League, and maybe that is something that could entice Gnonto to stay on at Leeds next season and put the head down and have a really big and impressive season for Leeds United. It could be something that entices him, it might not. We don't know about his future just yet. His best friend is heading away from the club, and that can be unsettling for players as well. They're very, very close, and we have to see what happens there. But there is, for me, a massive opportunity for Gnonto to move into a more central position, to take that left-hand side position, and to have a really big impact for Leeds United this season. But we'll have to wait and see on it. Leeds may bring in a winger to replace him, they may not, but we'll get to that in the rumour mill content that we're going to cover now in just a second. I kind of avoided this because it's very much just rumour, and the Ryan Kent rumour has popped back up again, and I just wanted to talk about it, deal with it, and get it out of the way and move on from it. So, talking about this in the order of which this rumour has picked up legs again. So let's just deal with it, move on from it. 4 years ago, Marcelo Bielsa inquired about the possibility of taking Ryan Kent to Leeds United. It didn't happen then. Since then, Leeds United have been continually linked with a move for Ryan Kent through good spells and bad spells. It has never happened, and there has never really been any concrete evidence to suggest that Leeds had any real interest in the player. About 3 weeks ago, a single Twitter account that is not a journalist and not even one of these fake ITK pages that pretend to know a lot about football, none of those. It was just a single person on an account who tweeted this out. It then got picked up by a couple of aggregate sites and found that Leeds United had an interest in Ryan Kent again. And then Alan Nixon from The Sun picked it up and said that Leeds had a £2.5 million bid in for the player and that negotiations with Fenerbahce had been ongoing. Now, Alan Nixon hasn't gotten a huge amount right about Leeds United. He's also the same journalist that broke the story that Leeds United had inquired about the possibility of signing Sammy Smodics. That when Graham Smith and Baron Cross and local journalists asked Leeds United about this, Leeds denied any interest in the player at all and went as far as to say Smodics is not a player that Leeds are looking at all this summer. Nixon has doubled down on that and claims a phone call still happened, but it's Nixon that has pushed this one here. It should also be said that Ryan Kent made one appearance for Fenerbahce in their last 25 games of the season last year, and that one appearance came off the bench. He was an unused sub or not in the squad at all for the remainder of the season. Kent scored one goal for Fenerbahce in his only season at the club, and during his time in Scotland, where his only real big task or big opponent was Celtic, Kent scored once in 4 years against Celtic in a situation where they play Celtic 4 times every year. From a person who watches a lot of Celtic games, Kent more often than not went missing during the bigger games for Rangers and didn't contribute a huge amount for the team against Celtic. It should also be said that Jose Mourinho has used Ryan Kent so far in their Champions League qualifying and pre-season games, but he played him in one match and started him, withdrew him just in the second half, and then didn't play him again in the second half, and has now said the player can go and is not a part of his plans in the future. Kent scored 3 goals in his final season in Scotland for Rangers in what was a decent Rangers side competing at the top end of the table, which is not a good return for an attack-minded player. Ryan Kent might be a Jadon Anthony level replacement for Leeds United on the bench, but he is definitely not at the level of a Crescencio Somerville replacement, and this rumour for me is only a rumour and doesn't have any significant legs. If Leeds were to bring Ryan Kent in at this stage, it would not be a positive move for me and would be a backward step for the club in terms of bringing in players that can make an impact. Ryan Kent's trajectory of his career is in a downward direction over the past couple of seasons, and coming into Leeds, where Leeds are bringing in young players who are on the up more often than not, Ryan Kent doesn't fit the bill for that for me. He doesn't seem to be a player that if I was a Leeds manager, I would be looking to be bringing in at all. So that's that. Wanted to cover it, wanted to mention it. A lot of people keep asking about it, and there's only so many times I can reply to the exact same question in the comments, so I thought we'll just deal with it on the news, get it done, and any questions you have about it will be dealt with then as well. Another piece as well, just to get through, there is a lot more questions around asset stripping around Leeds United and the 49ers. I have spoken to Kieran Maguire, the football finance expert, and he is going to come on the channel next week, and we're going to have a conversation around, is that actually happening? What do the finances suggest from the investors and Leeds United? And give people some direct answers about this conversation around the Red Bull ownership, what it actually means, and is there any asset stripping going on the club, which I personally don't believe that there is, because there's a huge hole in finances that Leeds have to fill. There's not a huge amount of profit with Leeds, if any, right now. So, but we'll cover it next week, and you can keep an eye out for that. The other piece to cover is an exclusive story that came from the Just Joe football show, and I've spoken to Joe Wayman this morning about this, and Joe's been informed by a pretty reliable person that Leeds United have an interest in left-sided winger from Man City, Micah Hamilton. Joe put out the story this morning and gave some detail on Micah Hamilton. I've linked the video down below, and you can check it out if you want to get more detail on what kind of a player Micah Hamilton is, but I'll give you the baseline on this. Hamilton is a left-sided winger primarily, has been involved with the Manchester City squad last season, although primarily on the bench and coming in and out of the squad. Did play against Newcastle and has played in the Champions League and scored in the Champions League for Manchester City. Has captained their underage sides as well and is seen as a very high calibre young player, but has a lot of competition ahead of him. Oscar Bobb being a player who's expected to break in to the Man City first team this year and would be ahead of Hamilton should he go. Now, Joe says that the player is someone Leeds are interested in. It could be a loan. It'll be likely later in the window because the player currently is on tour with the Manchester City squad and playing some games with them during that tour as well, but would be coming in as a player possibly to fill that Jadon Anthony gap on the bench should Leeds make a move for it. Joe said information can change pretty quickly, but he's been informed by a pretty reliable person on this, and we said we cover it in the Rumour Mill section for everyone to have a look at. You can check out the full video from Just Joe down below if you want to get more detail on the player there as well. And again, just as a reminder, the match day preview will go live tonight at 7 p.m. with Andrew Stats Dalton, and you can check out last night's podcast down below as well if you want to have a look at that as well. Outside of tonight, I'll be back on Monday morning for more Leeds news, and we'll be doing a review of the game, and we'll be bringing a new guest onto the channel hopefully between Sunday and Monday as well. So a lot of stuff to come early next week for those who are interested in the longer form content as well. If you want shorter versions of this, there is a TikTok channel now as well for Leeds United to view. You can check that out if you want some snippets from the news and podcast each week. That's going to be it for me today, folks. Massive thanks as always, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great day. Bye.